Yes, we can hear you.
Back in my background. Let's see if we can
Yes,
get
there
them
it
here. Yeah. We're going to talk about it a little while about a national youth. I can close it if this is too exciting. About this national youth platform we have in the Netherlands. Also about how this national youth platform is going to be the first World Food Forum national chapter from today. We have had a great day here in the Netherlands. These people next to me are quite good Dutch friends, but also very active internationally. Well, can you explain a little bit what you've experienced today? Maybe a short introduction, and how do you think that is valuable spending your Saturday in these activities?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so first a little bit introduction. My name is Lisanne. I'm involved with the World Food Forum as a youth champion, and I work also here in the Netherlands at a business called FME, connecting technology to societal challenges. So yeah, both of my my working parts. And what I learned today, well, the reason why I came here is also to experience also with other youth and talk to policymakers, to other youth, what is happening, what is on their mind, what are things that are going on. And what I experienced this morning, really like, well, a few things. First of all, at the human-centered part, it was also yesterday. I was also at World Food Day at another location, and it was really about how can we connect the food system again to our human side. And another thing is that education is very important, which I hear a lot, that it has to start from the educational part, bringing awareness, educating people about food system, but also just learning them food skills. That's why I think it's really interesting and really nice that the students that we just saw were so actively involved in how to make an ideal burger. And what I also hear is how to scale up or use what is already there, because there's a lot of things going on and a lot of initiatives, a lot of people with great ideas, with innovative ideas, but also with a lot of energy, passion to do things. And I think what I also saw this morning and during the day is if you put people in one room, not only digitally, but mainly also physically, that great ideas come up. And we just had a talk about it. We were at a table with a workshop, and we came up with the barbecue of the future, and just brainstorming it and thinking about it, and it really gives another feeling. And that's also what I took from today.
Good. Hello, everybody. My name is Fons Jansen. I'm 25 years old. I grew up in the rural south of the Netherlands on a mixed family farm with chickens for egg production, sheep for nature conservation, and also an elderly care facility by my parents and also my aunt and my uncle. I'm currently working for the European Commission as the Dutch coordinator for the European Climate Pact, which is the social program of the European Green Deal. And I'm also working for the Federation of Technical Universities as a youth organizer. And why I came to this event is really to see about how do we bridge the gaps between the generations, but also between nationally and locally. And it's really great to see that a lot of national youth stakeholders came together here to network, to really make sure there is one common platform where we can discuss the state of affairs, what is happening in our region, because each piece in the Netherlands is different when you're in the coastal area or when you're close to a river or close to a nature area, but also on local level. And it was really nice to see that our national ministries from agriculture, from the interior affairs, and also from economic affairs and climate got together with political leaders in cities and municipalities to really scale up our initiatives when it comes to a sustainable and healthy environment for food production and consumption. And what I really like about this event is that we really bring all the youth stakeholders together, because youth are often very much engaged already in these topics, and they want to upscale their activities together with leadership in business, NGOs, in governments, but are often not able to find them, because as a young person, you need to create your network or being helped to create your network. And what is really special about this day is that it's facilitated and that we can empower not only the youth, but each other in making sure that we are achieving the sustainable development goals, including zero hunger and good quality food.
Excellent, and then great to hear this all back and that it was happening today. For our very welcome guest, I see here Joris Thijssen, which is a member of Parliament. We were just discussing a little bit what happened here today on the physical event here in Ede. We are broadcasting this with a worldwide scope, and also because we realize, of course, is how we look at things in the Netherlands. It's not how everybody looks at it. So I had great talks, and what we're going to do now is because we have a Kahoot quiz and somebody got the flu, so we're not able to do that. We're running a little bit into time, but I think if I look at this, we have some people already here that will be part of the next program part. And what I wanted to do is check if we can get the presentation ready for that part. Because we had a great great day today, not just because we had political leaders signing a city deal on food and or healthy food and environment, but we are able to say that we're going to start with a national platform, which is the first World Food Forum national chapter. We're going to introduce a little bit more on this, what the World Food Forum entails, because not everybody knows. But also how we're going to work in that. Some young people already gave some input how this could look like. And we're going to try and see if we can get a step further in this discussion to see what we're going to do tomorrow. And first of all, I would like to show a video and give Lisanne the floor as our national representative on World Food Forum from the Netherlands to explain a little bit more what it is, and we'll join in the path to work on this. Let's see if I can do this at the same time as talking. Yes, here we go.
Yeah, so this is a short video which explains a bit what the World Food Forum is, but also where it came from, because how did the idea arise? Well, I can give already some insight in that, because there's not yet really a institutionalized youth platform, which is a high-level youth platform. So yeah, in this video you can see it as well. The FAO Youth came up with the idea of the World Food Forum, and in this video shows the lead up to the launch of the World Food Forum, which was at the beginning of October this year. So it's very fresh. So the videos you see in this clip is also, they are also really fresh. So yeah.
Yep. Cool.
We saw a problem. 811 million people are hungry. Actually, we saw many problems. The COVID-19 pandemic, 1.3 billion tons of food lost or wasted. Pests, conflict, and climate change. We're adding to the global inheriting this world is not acceptable. We needed to take matters into our own hands. We needed to disrupt the status quo. It was time for us youth to take control of our future. And for the first time, we value to solve these big problems, we need to that. How can we get the world to live? How can we fight action? How can we find innovative
Yeah, so that's a little bit of the idea of the World Food Forum in a nutshell, where you can also see a little bit how it began. So as I said, there's no high-level youth platform till now, but youth make up currently half of the world population. So it really has a power to change things. We can, if we work together, if we have a platform where we can all youth networks around the world can collaborate and act. But also, as we said here, it's also important to look at local and national level. So recap, what is the World Food Forum? Well, in short, it's an independent global network of partners, youth networks created for, and most importantly, also led by youth, because we can do, we are then in the driver's seat ourselves to transform our food systems. And important to mention, it's not a new youth network on itself, not a new constituency. It's mainly a way to connect, a way to have have a broader voice, to have a stronger voice together, to find actionable, innovative, inclusive solutions, and that young people feel empowered and can work together on this. A little bit on the structure, so the World Food Forum, because we also see that not every young person is interested in politics, in policy making. So that's also why it's important, at least that is the thought, that you also have other points, such as storytelling. Yesterday there was an amazing poem by someone, and you really saw the people in the crowd. They really had, like, they were listening so intently, and I think that's also what storytelling, music, film can also do. So besides that, I think that also really helps. But also cooking, learning skills, how to prepare your meals more sustainably, for instance, and also education, of course. And then for the Dutch chapter, well, as I mentioned, and what we discussed here as well, you can have, of course, a global movement, but you also need the movement on a local and on a national level, because not every problem is the same all around the world. It's not that you can say like something in the global south is similar as what we have here in the Netherlands. So that is why it's important to also look more context specific. And that is why the idea of a Dutch chapter pilot for the World Food Forum came about. And that's why I was really, it was really amazing to meet with Xander, who had the same idea. And I think many here in the Netherlands have the same idea, especially the youth, to have this chapter. So a little bit why, well, prevent fragmentation, and we had talked about it today, that this is really interesting, really important, because there is a lot of fragmentation also in youth networks, and the World Food Forum, because it's an independent platform, well, just wants to connect these all, and connect the dots, make sure that you know what is there, you know what, where you can go to as the youth. Second, so why would a national platform work together with the World Food Forum? Well, the World Food Forum itself already has global support, a global voice. So also a way to bring even broader youth voices to the table, and that we can identify and also amplify actionable solutions that are already out there together, and also connect and exchange again also with globally, so that we can learn from what is happening around the world, but that they can also learn from what we do here, because it's a two-way. It's not that we say we as the Dutch know how to do it, but it's also that we can learn from what is already out there. So the Netherlands can be seen as a first pilot for the World Food Forum in this. How are we going to do this? This is what I already mentioned. So why not select an already existing platform? Should here, but this is what I So what we also did, for instance, with the youth action track in the World Food Forum, is that we created a statement document, which is not, this is not probably not readable, but the idea was that there's already many statements and manifests out there, many youth voices that have created their ideas. So why not combine them into one? And I think this is also something that the World Food Forum can collaborate on, to see what priorities are there in the Netherlands that we can work on together with municipalities, with policymakers, so that we really have, that we don't scatter, but we have a direction that we're going to, that we have priorities that we can go forward with. Because sometimes people say, if you want to do everything at the same time, you achieve nothing. I think that's also really important to keep in mind. And as I said, actionable solutions are really important, because we can keep talking, but on a certain point we have to start doing. So based on priorities that can be selected, it's also interesting to see how can we scale them up, how can we connect them, how can we see what is out there. So that's why we came up with an actionable solution dashboard, an idea. And also I have to say, this is all still a little bit in scale up, because we just started in October. But this is what would be an interesting way to go, to see how we can make these actions already out there visible. And then a little bit on how we envision it, and after this I will give Xander also a little bit of word to explain a little bit more. But how we see this happening is that there is one national platform, which can be the Groenpact, which Xander will explain a bit more, that connects all the different youth networks in the Netherlands. And someone asked me, like, okay, but what is the World Food Forum then extra? But it's not that the World Food Forum is something extra, but because the Groenpact platform, the Groenpact idea was already out there. And I just connected with Xander and already other youth networks in this to see how we can make this work together and also use it as a Dutch pilot. And also then the national chapter can connect again with international groups. So that was a little bit the idea. And then I would like to give Xander a little bit the floor on the, I don't know if you want to use the slide or just want to do it.
Yeah, I'll use the slide, knowing that not everybody can read it, but it's about the form and the model. A little bit background information is that one of the reasons why I'm glad this platform is there, because it's took quite a long time on getting it there, and we still need to get it active. But we had some previous discussions today here in the Netherlands, but also in the online program, which focus at the intergenerational part of the success of youth participation. Because if you talk about tokenism or what kind of fashionable word there is at this moment, or youth greenwashing, or what was it? Youth washing we heard today. I do believe that's one of the pitfalls we look at if we talk about engaging youth. And of course, we're very curious how Joris also thinks about this, and everybody. But what we're looking at is a structural way of unlocking the potential of youth, and not just in the policy environment, not just getting a voice at the table, which is already a good step, but really get engaged in the solutions and creating impact, which resonates with intrinsic motivation of young people. And this could be through education, this could be through your job or voluntary work or your political career, but this should be connected, because there is a lot of youth organizations or youth who is not organized would be able and wanting to get connected with the decision makers who are working on these big challenges. Groenpact is a corporation that looks at those challenges in generic way, which means that they look at like the green challenges, which is climate change, which is biodiversity, which is food and food security. And Groenpact is, I think, for the Netherlands now quite common, but in other countries sort of unique, is that it works together in a multi-stakeholder environment. In this case, we call it a triple helix. So it works with governments, with private companies, and research institutes / education institutes. So they work on programs and program lines, research, etc., action tracks, to take on these challenges. And one of the things that happened years ago is that they all concluded we had similar days today. We should involve youth, because they have so much potential. They know what challenges we face, and let's go on with it. And in this cooperation, but what it showed, that it took us 3 years nearly to get this platform working, is that they needed to get to know each other. They needed to get to tap in each other's lifestyle and formal background, to do that first, and to see how can they align. Okay, what's the platform going to do? Is it just hosting meetings with young people, or it's going to be more? And then it came to, okay, we need a youth platform which is which makes the cooperation with Groenpact, which is experts, etc., equal. That's one of the most important things. That's why they took so long to create it. There's a program manager on behalf of the young people who is taking this forward. We even have a support from our governments, which makes it very handy to get the right people involved, etc. and there's an informal support group in which I am happy to take place myself. But this is going to connect all the young youth organizations in the Netherlands who are working on food-related challenges and programs, to strengthen their voice, to give them a voice and a seat at the table. For a lot of them, it wasn't up till now, it wasn't possible, but also get the ideas forward. So if there's an idea, there will be support within this dynamic to create prototypes, who say also, which we mean make it for real, make a concrete solution of an idea, and not make it just on paper. In the platform, we'll be looking for financial instruments. There will be policy debates. There will be ideas being shared and implemented, how we can change education, how can we attract young people, etc., etc., etc. And these are all ideas that are being brought to the table by these stakeholders. So not just young people themselves, but also the stakeholders around it. And what I think is very keen on getting this working is that everybody agrees on the intention, and from that step, they're gonna work together. So we didn't think of, okay, how would it all look? What are we all gonna do? And then say yes, no. We were going for, okay, this is the intention. Let's work together, and we're gonna create it. And from all these topics on food, we're looking in the Netherlands. We can't do that without acknowledging this is in an international context, next to the fact that a lot of Dutch young people are engaged in international networks, and people look at the Netherlands sometimes to work on this. We have to do this in international context. So it's very, for me personally, it's very easy to get this national platform, to use it also as a platform to get the input on the international tables, like Lisanne just shared. To make sure that we create the right debate, the right activities and inspiration to also take back to the national forum and the national grounds. I would also give our youth a voice in the international context. And this is, I think, the most simple how it could work, to have a representative on behalf of the Groenpact Youth Forum to work in this international context, and vice versa. And we already have good contacts with ministerial colleagues who want to support this and see how we can work with this. This is a lesson of Dutch for you all. No problem. I'm going to translate this. So we are developing the internal cooperation here in the Netherlands. And this is not just about the Netherlands, because I can imagine this is our goal of the pilot, that other countries are doing the same and are facing the same challenges. So connecting with all these youth organizations, underlining the principles, and take this in a generic way of working by these chapters to the World Food Forum and back. Here in the Netherlands, we are actually in this phase. So we're going to work on our program, the ideas we want to take on, sharpen this with the ideas of the Groenpact members, so all these opinion leaders that are in the decision-making processes. Where do we want to have youth engaged, and vice versa, where do we want opinion leaders to be engaged? Then we know what we need, and then we can design the support program. Of course, we're going to continue this in an evaluation method that we keep learning, because the world is changing fast, and these kind of cooperations we all need to learn, I think, in especially this phase. Well, if we've done that, we will hopefully next year, of course, share on the Youth World Food Day what we've learned and what we've done. Hopefully share this with a lot of another national chapter of World Food Forum, maybe more, and go to the next phase. And hopefully this doesn't continue just to 2024, but this is going to grow and continue as a normalization, as we said here in the Netherlands today. But this was also coming back from the former discussions with Lawrence and Bayer and the youth advocates. So this is a pilot. We're going to learn. Maybe we fail after tomorrow. Maybe we succeed and accelerate. But this will be very exciting, I think, for us, but also for the rest of the groups here on the call, working on the same challenges to get young people at the driver's seat for this support. So having this all said, and great, a lot of information. Great to see that all our friends are on the call for this moment. I would like to give the floor first to Joris, if he's able to, of course, introduce himself, but maybe reply to, okay, what are you hearing, and how do you, what brings that, what brings it up in you on inspiration and the work that you do, because we all look expectantly to members of parliament, because there's where the decisions are made. Maybe you look at this differently, but maybe you can respond to this. And also, how do you see the Netherlands in youth involvement? And is it, as we say in international context, tokenism, like it was fun for the picture, or do you think differently?
Well, hi everyone. Thanks for the invitation. I'm in a train, as you can see, but I hope the connection remains good. I think it's great what I'm hearing, and I think it's essential that youth is getting involved in the big issues of our time. So I think it's excellent what you're doing, and I think it's excellent that all the various ways you try to make you make yourself heard to show what the problem is, but also show the solutions, to show that you're willing to cooperate. And I think it's essential because what I see, before I became a member of parliament for the Labour Party in the Netherlands, I was working at Greenpeace. So also on food, but mainly on the climate. And I think in both areas, you see exactly the same. You see the vested interests from the companies that are big basically, yeah, all the companies that are currently profiting from the system. They are very well represented in parliament, in decision making, in all the various places where discussions are being had and decisions are being made. And I think it's essential that the youth in there as well. And they say, hey, it's not only about today, it's not only about the food of today and the profits of today, it's also about tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And you need to hear us, and you need to take into account that we also want to have a nice planet to live on when you guys are already dead, but we have children of ourselves. So I think it's essential that the youth gets into the debate, that you get loud, that you're as loud as possible. And I also think I don't know who said it, but you have, of course, the greenwash and you can have the youth wash. And I think it's a great word. And I think it's something to be very cautious about. Because I do see the tendency of political leaders or companies that say, oh yeah, the youth, please come in, share your views on it. And then we continue with business as usual. And you should never allow this. So if you get at the table, you have to make sure that they buy into the objectives you have, that you're really being heard, and that you have an influence on what is actually happening. So don't be the youth wash for business as usual, but really be the change you want to be. Because we have to tip the power balance. We have to get the vested interests are there, but we have to make sure that next generation, people that are already impacted by climate change, for example, that they're at the table as well when the decisions are being made. So super cool. Keep going. Be as strong as you can be, and let's kick some ass because we're running out of time.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
What is your advice to prevent youth washing? Or how do you think you can contribute to that yourself, or the parliaments, or?
Well, for example, let me give two answers. One is, if you're being invited at the table, you have to make sure that you're able to say whatever you want to say. And you have to be able to make sure that when they draw up conclusions from the meeting or from whatever is happening, that your opinion is there, even though it's not aligned with the opinion of the majority. And for example, when I worked at Greenpeace, we were invited to a negotiation process with the government for a so-called climate deal. And we wanted to be at the table because, we know what needs to be done. And we know that we have to counter the parties or the power from Shell and from the other fossil fuel industry. But so one of the conditions for us to get at the table was, what is the purpose of this whole deal? What are we negotiating towards? And if the deal is good enough, I think even an action-led organization like Greenpeace should have the guts to be at the table and see if you can bridge the gap and come up with all your good ideas and get a majority for it. But if the goal of the deal is not good enough, then you need to say, hey, I've nothing, I can't be there because you're only going to misuse my name to greenwash a bad target. And the target is simply not good enough, so I won't be at your table. So that's a trade-off you need to do. What I'm trying to do, and my party is trying to do in Parliament, is that one of the ideas we have is a so-called generation toets. What is that?
Assignment?
Check, like a check. So if there's a new law coming into Parliament, what we would like to have there is not only look at the financial aspects of the law, because that's normal that we do that in Parliament, but that we also look at, okay, but what does this mean for the next generation and the generation after? And if there's a bill that is basically ruining the climate, which, well, is already a problem for me, but it's an even bigger problem for the generations after us, then we need to say, hey, we don't want this. This is a bad law. We want to change the law. So that's one of the ways we try to insert youth into what we are doing in Parliament. And we have the youngest member of Parliament in our party, 23. That's pretty cool, I think, as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I see also here Roman Lenders from JKB. I don't know if you're already, yes. Hi. Yeah, so the JKB, the Jonge Klimaatbeweging, you're also very much involved in lobbying. Yeah. So how do you see this? How do you also feel sometimes a little bit youth washing, and how do you also see a Dutch chapter, for instance? I don't know if you saw the beginning of this, because we started a little bit earlier, but
I didn't see that beginning, but yeah, we're for the youth climate movement, we're big propagators of this generation test as well. That every single policy measure that is in the workings, in the planning, that needs to be evaluated on the impact of the future, especially staying below. It's already quite impossible. Try to stay below the 1.5 degrees warming, or keep it as low as possible, because those are the impacts we will feel. We will feel it in our wallet, but we will also feel it in our environment. And not only us, youth in the Netherlands, but also youth outside of the borders, because we're also very involved in the global partnership, connecting with youth climate movements from other countries, because I think around the world we feel this, and we also feel that we should really get our act together, and we can only do that if we have one voice and don't spread out too much. So I definitely agree with that.
yeah, what I've heard also here today is that it's also very important to use already what is there. So actually a question to you all. So a little bit thinking about actionable solutions. How do you have an idea how, for instance, for a Dutch World Food Forum chapter, how can we connect what is already working on the ground, for instance, in municipalities or networks or actions or education, to make also sure that it connects to what is happening on policy level, on laws, because there's also, for instance, if you look at food education at schools or exercising, it can also directly log into the legislation on health. But maybe it's not used enough still. So I'm a little bit looking how you see that, using what is already there.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. Well, the first thing I think about isn't necessarily food, but for example, with the energy transition that we're currently in, there are so many different initiatives, especially in cities, but also in the more rural areas, happening both from private actors as from municipalities and more public sector, that you can connect different businesses to, but can also connect schools to, and try to use those examples as learning opportunities to create a more national or maybe even global, but in this case, just a national strategy. Because I feel that those initiatives are quite fragmented, and there are good examples out there, definitely, but they don't get to the top in terms of what people see and what they can then eventually use in policy making. So I think that's a good way to connect to what is already happening on the ground.
And do you have an idea on something we discussed also today, which I'm also still figuring out how this works, is as an example, we had a meeting today with people signing the city deal of food, all these, I think, somehow important people who are decision makers, etc. We set them at the table, actually eating a vegan designed burger by youth, designed by youth, and with youth at the table. And what we got back is that this importantly was an opportunity for youth to talk to them, and they want to have more, etc. And a little bit exaggerating, but with I think a truthful point is that these people will be working in their ministries and their governments Monday, and we gave them something hopefully that reminds to this agreement, but how do we make sure that it's gonna last and that's gonna get impact? Or do you have advice, maybe Rowan, or maybe Joris has also advice on this? How do we keep this energy going and this cooperation? Because it takes a lot of time sometimes to get only this meeting today. And with a long story, my end point is that how do we match these perspectives? Because the conclusion of today was these people are looking for young people, and young people are looking for these networks. How is it so complex? How can we make this work better?
Jules, do you want to go first, or does somebody else want to respond to this?
I think it's.
Yours is frozen.
He's frozen.
I think you went in a tunnel.
In a tunnel.
Yeah, probably.
You have an idea about this.
Well, I think so. Let me talk from the perspective of the European Climate Pact. I think it's important that we inform many more stakeholders about how you can get involved. Because right now there's not just one overview of all the good youth initiatives across the Netherlands on a national, provincial, or local level, or even European. Because don't forget that when it comes to any global issues or international trade, the Netherlands works within the EU. That we make a good overview, and that I think it's also just about enough youth workers already existing in municipalities that know that we exist and we can help them on the theme of food. Or at least also get more funding, that we have more youth workers dedicated on the challenges regarding food. Because let's face it, we have a major difficulty with our nature goals, with our and with farming. I think it's very important, and especially for the youth stakeholders, to make sure they have the capacity. For instance, today I learned that, for instance, a company of Bayer, they have the money to have just one observer that constantly looks on all the developments when it comes to food and youth. And I think we're still, young civil society should also deserve that from the public state or from the European Union, how to organize ourselves, because most of these goals are within this working generation. So we need to make sure that we also empower this generation.
Well, yeah, I learned also once, I don't know where it was again, but there's someone who was a sort of a scout, initiative scout. It reminds a little bit of what you just said, and someone who goes into cities and sees what's already out there. So like something as a initiative scout, and that can also then be connected to one platform where you can find it and where you can also see what is going on there. It's a little bit similar, I think.
Yeah. What I also think, was it Thijs, or what was the name again?
Joris.
Fons.
Joris. Sorry, Joris Fons. What Joris said about youth participation and make sure that there's some kind of overview. I think apart from an overview, for example, with the generation test, what we really need is more routine moments for evaluation. Right now, we have to do so much work, what you also said, to get to the table, call many people multiple times, answering many voicemails and then not really getting a response. It takes so much time, and it's kind of insane that we always say that the youth perspective is really important, and we need that, but that there are no routine moments during the year planned where different youth organizations on a specific issue are invited to say, oh, this is what we think about it. If we have that in our calendar, we can more appropriately prepare for it. And I think what is also nice, what was just said, is make it more an experience as well, so it stays in the mind better, not only talking and delivering some kind of written example, but
Papers.
for example, making some food, vegan food, that, and in that way engaging with people, or make something with a festival out of it, or something with music, like make it more of an experience. I'm missing that sometimes.
Yes,
I feel
it's really nice that you say that, because we had a discussion about it this morning as well. Someone from the panel here in the offline festival said, like, it's really important, first of all, to look at trends, but also to look at the social part, just to make it fun. It's really important that it's just fun, and maybe not always focus on the sustainable and healthy part, but just make things fun and come together. So, yeah.
and make it
that's-
engaging.
Yeah.
Make it
Yeah.
more engaging. We're also like currently we're writing our or we're starting to write our youth vision for 2050, the third version of it. So the second version we already had. And this time we're also trying to look at how can we make it more of an experience, use sounds, use maybe even taste or different senses to let the message really stick, really let it stick. And not
Yeah.
only talk, not only let people read things.
But it's also really good what you just mentioned, like a structural conversation with with policy leaders, with where we just talked about like how to have this interaction with a structural interaction with policymakers, because there's both ways. So youth are looking for ways to connect, and sometimes policymakers are also looking at the other way to find youth and have their input. So have a structural way to talk together. That would be, and just have it something in the agenda on a specific topic. I know that from the Climate Pact, they have these, I think with the future, I don't know what the name was again, but there's already like on a higher level, on a European level, there's already these structures where they have talks.
Yeah, so I know from the civil society, you have Generation Climate Europe, which is the major coalition of the societal youth, European societal youth organizations. And with the European Council, they have a half-yearly conversation on the agenda of the European Council, especially on all the sustainability topics related to the European Green Deal. And also, I think that's very important to make sure as a climate pact that also national and local stakeholders know about this, so that you work on the various governance levels, because then with the Netherlands alone, you cannot solve it, but together you can do much more.
Yeah.
Maybe yours, in the right context of not being youth washing, or maybe you have politician washing as well, I'm not sure, but would it be something where you have a fixed structure on the Committee on Agriculture at the Parliament to be part of this, as would this be an idea to, we have this national forum with all these organizations and status meeting. I hope you got it in a fun, participative way to do this. Would it, not just because it's fun, but also would it be valuable for the committee to do that?
Yes, of course. So, for example, if you want to give a petition to the committee, or if you want to have a roundtable with the committee, that's stuff that's fairly easy to organize, and usually the committee agrees with it and does it. So that's an excellent way to interact with the people on the committee.
And are they eager to just be in debate, or would they love to make vegan burgers with us?
Well, I think some of them, they would love to make vegan burgers with you. Not all of them.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important that there's really a discussion, so that it's not just that it's like gathering input, but also that we have a real back and forth. Because I think, you can be invited, you can have a talk, but then if nothing really changes, then why have to talk? So that's a little bit what my feeling is with this, like how to make it really structural.
Yeah, but I think, but then even if you have a structural conversation with the committee, that's not going to change the committee, to be honest. What is changing the committee is if you become a movement outside of parliament that can't be ignored. So, for example, if you look at the climate movement, so if I were you, I would join the climate movement and see if you can broaden it a little bit, because our food system is also changing our climate, as we all know. But what you see with the climate movement is that when we were negotiating for this climate pact 3 years ago now, at some point there was the part of the deal was there, and Greenpeace and the other NGOs and also the youth movement said, well, this deal is not good enough and it's not fair because the big polluters don't have to pay and the households do have to pay. So we said, well, you can, what they basically did is we had a concept deal and they sent it to the institutions to basically calculate it and see if it was fair and effective. And we said, it's not fair, it's not effective. So you can calculate whatever you want, but we're going to mobilize. And 3 months later, we were with 60,000 people in the streets in Amsterdam demanding a better deal. And then 2 weeks later, we got a better deal. You need
The underwater tunnel. Might be another dip in the network.
But it's very interesting what he says, like maybe not directly to Parliament, but also create like a movement besides it. To me, it also then, yeah, because if you want structural change, a systemic change, you do need the interaction with Parliament as well. So I'm also a bit, how do you feel about having only a movement besides it?
Well, if I may think about it, I think what is very important is that we have that the youth stakeholders in the Netherlands delegate their board members regarding public affairs. They really keep track of what is on a political agenda on a daily basis, and also just discuss that on a monthly basis, what is happening with these agriculture committees.
Yeah.
And then on these yearly meetings with like a Dutch youth food festival, to discuss a summary of what has happened and discuss that further with relevant stakeholders and youth stakeholders. I think it's the responsibility of all the youth stakeholders in the Groenpact youth network to do your work, because eventually it's really about that you organize your representation as youth stakeholders to make sure that you're represented within the various education levels, within the various regions, within the various groups in the food chain. And if you just organize that and you make sure that also youth within or professional stakeholders are also represented, for instance, with youth parties in political parties, but also young entrepreneurs starting businesses in the various business associations, then you get started rolling. I think that's the message that I got out of this.
Yeah, you also need you really need a good input.
You need
really
to be
good
represented
content.
in all facets of the society, and to make sure that you bring that together on an annual event.
It's also what Marcel Beukenboom during the pre-COP event says. He talks about 3 layers, and one of them was that you really need, once you're at the table, you need really good content. So you need to know where you're talking about. And I think youth do need a little bit support also in that, because you can, of course, there's a lot of knowledge, but we don't have that much experience as someone who is already like 30 years in policy making, for instance. But it is important to know what you're talking about. So that's a responsibility, I think, for youth.
Absolutely. But also that's something that can grow if you start meeting structural way. You're also able to say, okay, this is something I need to know more of, or how does it work in Parliament? How does it work in companies? And then if you would have, of course, this is one of my dreams, is that if you have a day like today, which we could harvest these national opinions, proposals, dialogues, etc., and at the same time leverage that on an international level. I think it also makes days like this very effective, because, and I think that's also what Joris meant, is that it's not just that youth is being heard today and vice versa, but the day after they are vocative and getting these proposals or opinion forming forward. And I think it should be more in that way also structural. So it's not just that everybody comes together when youth thinks, okay, now it's the time, also vice versa.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it needs to build up. But what I like to do, just I see that Mario is on the call, and in this dynamic in the talk we're talking about, Mario is part of the Youth Alliance, which also I think has a great job on getting all these youth networks on a global level involved. But Mario, you're from Spain, and do you think a certain, hearing these stories, a certain national forum and the challenge with that are possible in Spain?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Hey, yes.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that before, because when you were actually were typing on the chat, like, how do we bring this World Food program into Nativa chapter? And it's kind of, I can see, like, for instance, you in the Netherlands, you have like good, not good, like, but like engaged, like youth organizations that are very engaged in this topic. But I don't know how will be like the possible pathway to cascade this initiative for every country. And I think in that regard, even if at the end it's like organized by youth, led by youth, like there has to be a kind of a call from a multi-stakeholder or multi-country organization that say, hey, we have the World Food Forum, you are responsible, like that happened in your country. So they give this kind of publicity, this kind of initial step. So then youth organization in Spain can get engaged. Because I'm pretty sure like many youth organizations in Spain doesn't know about the World Food Day, doesn't know about, they can arrange a national chapter. But I think if there is like some kind of call for the countries to promote and to foster a national chapter, even the call, they don't need to arrange everything. They don't need to put the resources in, just to make a call, just to give it like publicity. Then there will be a ton of youth organizations in Spain that will be like really willing to lead this. So what I don't know is which actually like a structure, what kind of UN agency or who can make that call. So it's like actually effective. I know, like maybe like in spaces at the Committee of World Food Security, or maybe like the FAO representative, but there has to be a call. And I think if they put the call, youth will take the lead and youth will arrange everything. But they need to know that this is happening, like, especially if we want this to happen in every country, not like not only in those countries that where it's like a big like youth, like a youth support, let's say, from organizations. That is in the case of the Netherlands, which is like very obvious. And thank you guys for organizing this, because this is like, I think you are pioneering something that will be replicated in many countries. I'm pretty sure. I just don't know what will be the exact pathway, and I'm pretty sure we need to make like a big call from a general institution to make this through. Maybe through the World Food Forum in general, that has to be.
Yeah,
It's really good that you mentioned it, because I can bring it to the table also in the working group for the World Food Forum. Because we can see if we can make such a call, perhaps from the FAO, but also maybe in another way. So
Yeah.
Thanks for that suggestion. I think it's really interesting to look at that.
So hopefully if we start moving that, maybe in the next year we'll have like 30 Youth World Food Day in 30 countries. And then the following one we have 90. And then in the next one we have 120 that are gonna come like regular thing. Like more people can engage. So I mean, step by step, but
yeah, no, but excellent. But one of the things I'm just making explicit, but it might be an open door, as you say in Dutch. But the youth organizations we have in the Netherlands are not all just Dutch. So one of the things we could do is also see if we have a next meeting, is look into our young farmers organizations who are organized also European. So through these networks and nods, as we call them, we could also accelerate this. So it would be bottom up and top down. If
Yeah.
you
And
use
I
the
can
term.
also, if I also may give a suggestion, at the beginning of 2022, there's also a food campaign from the European Climate Pact. That's also a very good opportunity to share the message that we can mobilize young stakeholders across the EU and beyond that to get active for the World Food Forum, but also, for instance, with the European Union, African Union Youth Hub, which is this big cooperation with Africa, because we do have the money to mobilize and organize the youth organizations with a ton of money, but they definitely don't. So in that way, also you could create this, pay actually the debt with the disparity between the various continents, because what we see with the big climate challenges, we are not seeing that the civil society in the southern world are getting the funds that have actually been promised by the Paris Agreement, for instance. And food is also relevant for when it comes to combating climate change.
That's really good. I hope this work can expand. Maybe in Europe, as you say, you were talking before about the importance of farmers. I think in Europe there are like big youth farmers organizations in every country, and if we can replicate the same way in other countries, but they can live as well this kind of chapters. So.
And they need to be involved
Mm.
because they're really important.
Everybody
part,
in the food chain.
Yeah, everybody,
Yeah.
but also not only like the most obvious partners, but also youth organizations in general, because everyone is involved in food. So if you're in music or if you're in culture, you can also be involved because you have a part to play as well, whether it's in activities or in what you serve in your canteen, as we talked this morning about.
No, really, one of the inspirational points I got today from Lawrence Sadat is that we always talk about being get out the how to call it, the walls between these different parts of organizations, mainly in governments. But what I got from that is that he said, okay, we need to look through the lens of food, which is related to everything. So it's for us, it's not also just to look at farmers or the food value chain. It's also to look at housing in relation with food, like our counselor here does. And not to make it huge and immense, but it's also to open those doors and see what all the relations is with food. So you also can underline the influence and the impact. But no, excellent. I think this is turning into a great step forward on this.
I have a question also to yours again, if I may.
Yeah.
I was wondering how is the topic of food actually on the agenda now in the parliament? Is it even on the agenda, or is it, because sometimes it's also like it's a choice from society themselves. So how is that currently?
Or it's just nitrogen?
You mean like in the global agenda, or like it's
No, in
our
the
Dutch
Netherlands,
agenda,
in the Dutch, yeah.
Ah, okay. I think in the coming years, or not only
For yours.
For yours.
okay.
I'm very curious what you were going to say, Mario. But,
Exactly. I'm also curious what to say.
I don't know. Like,
But I mean, the biggest thing at the moment in the Netherlands with the agricultural situation is the whole discussion around nitrous oxide. So it's the fact that our nature is in a very bad shape, and it's happening because of also because about half of the nitrous oxide pollution comes from agriculture, and basically it means that we cannot new permits cannot be given, for example, to build houses or to do any industrial activity or even to build a windmill, because the nature is too polluted. And that means that the whole agricultural system needs to change, it needs to get into a transition, and it needs to become more nature inclusive. So that at the moment is the biggest discussion there is in Dutch Parliament, which we're not going to fix at the moment. We're still waiting for a new government in the Netherlands, and they have to come up with very substantial proposals to actually solve this problem. And I think second, there is some discussion about health and about healthy food. And there you see that there's a so-called prevention accord, which is basically voluntary agreement with all sorts of actors in society to make our society more healthy, also the food healthier. But I'm quite skeptical about it because it's all voluntarily and it's not delivering enough. So I think that's also one where we should push for.
And where we perhaps can also see how to collaborate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not? Yeah,
How we
yeah,
can
definitely.
push it even further.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that's one of the assets. I'm not saying that every young person is doing this, but I think there's a new generation who looks more concerned, more proactive at sustainable, concerned choices. So involving youth at this stage in 2021 also means that personally, I think that you would get a green generation at the driver's seat who's gonna go for the green vote more anyway in the natural instinct. I'm looking for we make this session at the end of the day. We've got nearly 8 hours running from this morning, which also shows I think there's a lot of engagement from the generations on this. What should be our not action agenda, but what's the main action we could do tomorrow? If it's the top of mind, no analytics, what can we do tomorrow?
For this, I think we just need like to come together with stakeholders, important stakeholders, to really make an agenda. So how are we going to make this work? What are because that's not something you can come up with now. So what are the priorities? We need to come up with priorities because you can work on many things. You may have to make choices. So I think we need to make choices together, see what is the main priority and work on those topics together in actions, see what is on the ground already happening and then from that go forward. I think that's, and also we need some acknowledgement that as a youth platform, we are the point where people can go, where youth can go, but where also policymakers can go. And also maybe, the JKB can help in that, and NJR can help in that. So that there's one point where policymakers can go, but also where youth can go. And that acknowledgement, I think, is really needed.
Do you know what an actor is that I also would like to incorporate? I'm not sure if you already do that or if you take it into consideration, but I feel that's such an important one that, especially when the whole polarization happened between agricultural sector and, well, especially the climate sector, which were kind of put against each other, is the role of supermarkets, and get them to the table and demand things there as well on the way they distribute foods. They advertise certain foods and put certain foods in a more accessible place where it's right in front of your eyes, whereas other foods are very difficult to find. Like, it's the main place where most people still get their food. And I feel it's important to engage that conversation with them in a way. I also hope that eventually in Parliament, they also take that into consideration, even though it is a private actor and maybe we can't do that much, but that's also a bit shying away from that, I think.
But I think it's a very valid point, and glad to say that we're partially on this. Also, this is also an element why it took a little bit longer to get this platform going, because in the beginning, just to add to my point, is that some youth organizations said, "Oh, but we have to have the same statement." So my youth platform on agriculture is looking at more ecosystem restoration, nature inclusive, and they said, but you can be on the same platform with a young Ahold Delhaize. This is not possible. Fortunately, in the end, we said, but this is, we all want change, and we're not saying that we're going to change our statement, but we do want to unite in engaging together and see how we can take steps. So young Ahold Delhaize agreed to be part of this platform. For instance, also Young Rabobank and Friesland Campina. These are also quite traditional, I think, but I think this shows that if we, with you and all the organizations here, could work on this, this entails this field that we need to get this transition going. But we need the Jumbos and others. And I don't know if you know that beautiful picture. Well, it's not beautiful, but in the agri-value chain that you see it narrow down to a couple of plans. That there are supermarkets who are determining some things. But great addition, and love to have you on board anyway. And what I also take away is a specific action point, and I'm definitely gonna. Well, I'm gonna leave Mario alone for a couple of days, but and see how we can maybe for the Youth Alliance is ignite some actions on different member states. I know there's the Young Farmers Organization, which we could maybe get some balls rolling, because I think it will also powerful for the Netherlands chapter if other countries are also working.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm going to take on as well.
Well, and if I come back to your question, what can I do
Yeah.
tomorrow on Monday? As the coordinator of the European Climate Pact with the community in the Netherlands, like we support all stakeholders that are for sustainability if they comply with our manifesto that civil society has drawn up together with the European Commission when they were making the European Climate Pact. And I can support you with the connections that the European Commission representation in The Hague has with the various professional youth stakeholders to raise more awareness. And as I said, we can also prepare like collaborations when it comes to the campaign on sustainable food and food consumption and production in early 2022.
Super. And and one that I want to repeat here is that we had 13 formal decision makers on city deal of food agreed to work together with young people. So they'll come in somewhere because we've promised to work together for another 4 years. Are there any questions? Well, also, I want to close this day to an end, which I think is very worthwhile. If it's from my perspective, lots of young people have been watching at home from different parts of the world before going to bed or getting up or while having lunch from the Netherlands and outside. Our experience is that these videos will be watched back a lot and there will be comments more. But if you want to participate, have more knowledge about this, please reach out to us. In the Netherlands and outside of there, we want to work on this. I know just for now, because I know there was a lot of things going on earlier this week. I always say you don't celebrate Christmas 2 days before or after that. So we're very glad that we made this World Food Day with all these young people and stakeholders. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joris. I think we're privileged to have you on board in this discussion that shows that youth is invited to the table in discussion and work together. And these are the close relations we can make quite easily. So thank you for that, taking your time, and everybody. And let's have a great weekend and enjoy the actions on Monday that we just set out. And thanks very much, everybody.
Well, and I think what Joris mentioned about having a talk with Parliament, I think in some time from now, or at least in a short time from now, I think that's also interesting to do. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the secretary, I don't know if you call that in English, but of the Committee on Agriculture definitely said they would be open to another meeting on this. So we've got our proof of evidence with yours. Thank you very much. And we'll be in touch either Monday or after that. And enjoy the weekend. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You as well.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Enjoy the weekend. Have some rest.
Thanks, Mario.
Yeah.
So
Still says live on Facebook.
we're going to quit Facebook.